Hello, good evening. Welcome to Mental Health Hour. My name is Dr. TAPO. I hope your weeks have begun in a good way, that so far this week has been productive. It's been everything you've hoped for. We're coming towards the end of January already. Time really does fly, but it also seems to crawl in many, many ways. And that's something that I've been reflecting on myself, just in my personal life, and watching like even children growing, becoming adults, that kind of thing. And it seems like just yesterday they were babies, now they're grown, and yet there are other aspects in life that seem to pass very, very slowly, the things that we wish would happen fast. So we're not so anxious about the future or the unknown. So I hope this month of January has been good for you. Here in Canada, we're looking forward to Black History Month, which is February, where we celebrate everything that is Black, the good, the bad, the ugly. We get to celebrate each other and ourselves as Black communities across this country. Before I go any further, please know that anything we discuss on the Mental Health Hour is not a diagnosis, it is not clinical treatment, it is for educational and information purposes only. It's up to you, and I hope you do seek help with a qualified professional in your region or in your area, country, wherever you might be. You can reach us at 437-778-3299 or email us at infolovebay@gmail.com. So that's info, INFOLUVBAY @gmail.com. And the number again, you can call or text, is 437-778-3299. So we always love to hear from you. Last week, I asked people for topics and discussions they'd like to have over the next few weeks or so, and you all did not disappoint. So thank you to everyone who sent in their questions, their suggestions, and some just sharing information that they think would be useful. I like the Mental Health Hour because it's something that we're working on together. We're all working on our mental health. We're improving ourselves, our qualities of life, because mental health really is about your quality of life. And for a lot of us, this is something that we've never really put enough intentional effort towards. That expectation that if I work hard, if I do this, I'll just be happy. If I keep quiet, I'll be happy. But being intentional about your mental health is more than just pleasing people. And today I want us to really kind of delve into this idea of mental health as we prepare for future discussions. Just really, what do we mean by mental health? What are the components or aspects of mental health? How can we measure our own mental health and begin to formulate ways to improve our quality of life? So we'll be talking about that. As I was thinking about what is mental health, there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of fantasies, even like our imaginations are great. I'm always really surprised at what people think therapy is. Impressions from television, impressions from other people's experiences, but often people have no real idea what therapy is until they've actually gone for therapy. And yet a lot of us don't go because we fear the unknown. But if we would just take that step, seek help, seek therapy, it really can make a difference to our quality of life. So I want to just quickly read some of the suggestions that came through, some of the questions and that. And then we'll talk a lot more about what is mental health. How can you start being intentional about your own mental health? Towards the end of 2023, we were talking about triggers, and one of the main points in that discussion was awareness. You need to be aware. And mental health is something that you really need to be aware of in your own life. What are the things impacting your mental health? Because a lot of us are suffering needlessly because we're not paying attention to what is impacting and affecting us. Some of us have just kind of accepted this mediocre, negative type life where poor quality mental health is at the top of everything. So you're basically going through your life through day after day in this bubble of poor mental health, and you don't even realize it. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who come because they're not happy. And I ask, yeah, but what does that mean? Because it's not like I have a wand that I can just wave and there you go, be happy. So many of us want to be happy. And the reason we are not happy is because of our mental health. Happiness and good, healthy minds go hand in hand. You cannot be happy if you're not looking after your mental health. You just cannot. So before I go any further, we got a message from, I'll start with Tina in Calgary, because I had mentioned uh, another show here on Love Bay Radio that really delves into gender-based violence. And so Tina in Calgary was referring to that, and he or she says, or they say, on your show yesterday you mentioned another show on the station that talks about emotional stuff, turn your wounds into wisdom. Oprah Winfrey. I don't understand. As far as I know, Oprah Winfrey is not on Love Bay Radio, so I'm not really sure what they meant by that. But she says the host talks about domestic violence and abuse and how she suffered. I bought her book. Now she's doing a show helping others who are going through the same hell. Okay. So yeah, check out all the offerings Love Bay has, like it's really quite interesting. I'm not sure if there's anything that is not discussed on Love Bay Radio. We talk about finances, sports, the history of our African and Afro-Caribbean people, all sorts of. So whenever you have time, tune in and catch the other shows here on Love Bay. Okay, so thank you to that listener from Calgary. We have Nita from British Virgin Islands. And Nita says, I continually overplease people and neglect my own needs. I would like it if you would do a program on self-love, protecting your personal space and boundaries. I struggle with this. I care too much about what others think and how they perceive me. I would say this is the beginning of wisdom when you can actually and are now aware of what it is you do to destroy your own mental health. And for this listener, they're admitting, I care too much about what others think and how they perceive me. And so, because of that, they're over pleasing people and neglecting their own needs. And that is definitely not a recipe for good mental health. So, Nita, what I can say to you is we will be talking about that in the coming weeks. Um, I'll read the suggestions that came from others as well. Then I'll let you know some of the topics we'll be covering over the next few weeks. If you have a topic that you would like covered, feel free to contact us. You can text us or email us. Okay, we're in Barbados now, and we have someone at Fort George Heights in Barbados who says self judgment, emotional baggage, and self worth in one shot is a good topic. Thank you to that listener, and we will definitely be getting into those issues and difficulties, challenges we all face at some point in our lives, right? Tony from Scarborough says stigma. I think stigma is a good topic for your mental health program. Thank you, Tony. We'll definitely get into that. Herman from Brampton says bullying and harassment in the workplace and the serious effect on workers' mental health, which trickles into our family lives, space, and relationships. That's a good topic as well, and we'll definitely get into that. We have Kwaku in Amsterdam who says dealing with the journey of one's personal growth. I believe is a good topic for your show. Thank you. It definitely is. And then we have Grace in Mississauga who says nurturing relationships is a good subject for your show. So thank you to those folks that sent those in. I wrote them down and kind of created a six session series here that we'll cover over the next few weeks. So we will talk about the journey of personal health growth. And starting today, actually, we will be talking about what exactly is mental health. So you have a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve when you say, this year I'm working on my mental health. What does that look like? What does that mean? Okay, so that journey of personal growth, but of course, we'll expand it into other domains in life. So, mental health is very, very important, very critical to how you enjoy your entire life. But it's not the only important thing that you need to work on, that you need to be intentional about. Next, we'll talk about self judgment, self worth, self love, which also comes with the topic of self esteem. And we did cover it some time ago. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but we have talked about self esteem before. We will talk about it again. Nurturing relationships, yes, we'll get into that. We'll get into communication. We'll get into even knowing if you're in the right relationship, some of those red flags, some of those indicators that your relationship is not quite what you want it to be. Sometimes what happens is we build castles in the air. The person we are in love with is very much an imaginary person. The real person you're with is who you need to get to know and understand and nurture and develop a relationship with. But a lot of times, and people tend to put this on women, but men do this too. People in general tend to see what they want to see and ignore a lot of things until they get hurt or someone gets hurt. Okay? So we'll be talking about nurturing relationships. We will talk generally about boundaries, whether it's at work, at home, with in laws, with friends, with your post person. What are boundaries? And we've talked about boundaries a lot, but I don't believe it's ever too much until we all have healthy boundaries that contribute to our mental health, good mental health. We'll talk about work based trauma, workaholism, working too much, why we work, what motivates us to work, what is it that we're trying to achieve. We know that the pandemic changed the structure of work for a lot of people, and things just really never went back to what they used to be. And that's not a bad thing. It's called progress. But the more we fight it, the more we resist it, the harder it becomes to function in our world today as it is, especially in our professional settings. So we will talk about that. We'll talk about change. We'll talk about professional development. We'll talk about becoming those career people we want to be, or entrepreneurs, or how do you chase after your dream in a healthy way? Because at the end of the day, you might succeed but be very unhealthy in different aspects of your life. Maybe you've worked so much, you've alienated your children, your spouse, your friends, and you find yourself now where you've always wanted to be, except you're alone. Or maybe you're somebody who feels like you've put in all the effort and it's just not happening for you. And you now feel anxious, you feel depressed, you feel like a failure. And so, how do you handle failure? How do you handle those setbacks? How do you bounce back? How do you keep going when it feels like you've given everything you have and you're still not there? And the rules keep changing on you, right? We'll talk about that as well. And the subject of stigma is, I find it interesting because I speak about stigma in different contexts. For example, stigma and racism and discrimination, and how stigma contributes to even harassment and discrimination and that. But when it comes to mental health, it's something we hear like it's almost always the second sentence. Mental health, blah, 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 stigma always comes up. Stigma always comes up. And I've never heard a single person support stigma or want to cultivate more stigma or want to applaud how much stigma we have in mental health. Particularly when we're talking about Black communities, it comes up a lot. So we all seem to have an understanding, more or less, of what stigma is, and yet it's not changing. If anything, it's getting worse. So, why do we have stigma when we talk about mental health? Where does it come from? Why is it such a prevalent factor in our communities? Why is it possibly the biggest challenge we have to overcome to achieve good mental health? So we need to talk about that. We need to explore that because we seem to know, but we keep repeating the same patterns that hold us in this state that is stigma, holds the stigma over us, so we can't go any further. So we'll talk about that as well. So we have about 6 or 8 or so weeks worth of discussions. Thanks to again to everyone who sent in their ideas, their and topics for us to discuss. We will definitely get into all of that and tackle that. Now there is one message that we're going to kind of spend a little bit of time on and then move on to the topic of mental health. And this came from Anonymous in Toronto, who says, I nurtured my fiance back to love when we met. He was very broke from his marriage and is now divorced. We are engaged to be married this November. The ex-wife realized now she is out of his system and is getting their 2 children involved to cause problems. The kids' ages are 12 and 14 years old. My fiance and I argue all the time. He thinks I do not like his children. I am lost because he refuses to see what is going on here. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. So I want to start with this idea of I nurtured my fiance back to love when we met. And this is a woman who met a man who was very broken from his marriage, was going through a divorce, and is now divorced. So they're engaged to be married later this year. I nurtured my fiance back to love. When I read that, I wondered what exactly does that mean, to nurture a person back to love? There's a lot of romanticism going on here. There's a lot of romanticism going on here. And what I mean by romanticism is this idea that you nurture people back to love. And when you hear that phrase, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? For me, um, I imagined a woman who was bending over backwards, mothering and possibly babying this man. Um, Sometimes we make excuses for people. We, the problem with falling in love with a traumatized person is the love that develops is not unconditional. It is very much about, I need you because I'm lost and broken right now, and you're offering me some care, some nurturing and love. And so it's not always safe. It's not always safe to be in a relationship with someone who is still dealing with trauma, and you're the one being their rock, being their shelter, being their Jesus, saving them. And it's really not your job. It really is not your job. We have romanticized trauma. Like, some of us go out there looking for the most broken person so we can feel valued and loved. That's what it comes down to. You want to fall in love with somebody who is healthy enough to fall in love with you, healthy enough to focus on building that relationship and that love with you. But when you fall in love with somebody who is broken and traumatized, you cannot expect to have a healthy relationship with an unhealthy mind. They are traumatized. They are not healthy. And you playing their nurse means, yes, they'll feel like they love you. They will feel like you're giving them care while they are healing. And it's nice and it's kind and it's selfless and all those lovely things, but it is not safe. It is not safe, because at some point they stop needing you because they are now healed. You don't stay in a hospital when you are now healthy and fine. Most people go to the hospital, they want to get out as soon as they can, because you don't want to stay in a place where you are the victim, where you are the weak one, where you are the needy one. It's not healthy. So my thought was, right there, right there, I nurtured my fiance back to love. Right there is where you went wrong in the first place. And that doesn't mean if somebody has been brokenhearted, all that, you should not date them, you should not love them, you should keep them at a distance. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to be able to separate your healing and nurturing and caring for a wounded person from, this is actually a healthy relationship. You need to know where one starts and where one begins. And I don't know if you are sure yet that this person is now healthy enough to have a healthy relationship with you. And also, there's something that we call vicarious trauma. This is when you experience trauma as a caregiver or somebody who cares about another person who is experiencing trauma. So you end up traumatized yourself by things that are happening in somebody else's life because you are within that orbit, because you are caring for them. And in this case, you are nurturing them back to love. Are you still healthy? I don't know if you were healthy in the first place, but now we need to ask, are you still healthy mentally after nurturing a broken person back to love? What did that do to you? So you both need to take inventory, because out of that inventory, you will find solutions to a lot of the problems, including the tension with the children and the ex-wife. It doesn't start by changing his relationship or whatever with his ex-wife and his kids. It starts by you, listener, anonymous in Toronto, taking inventory. After nurturing this man back to love, how am I doing? Where am I? What's my mental health? What is my status and condition? Am I able to love him in a healthy way if he is no longer broken? Because maybe what attracted you to him was that brokenness. And normally, if that's the case, you will always be looking for something wrong for you to fix, because that is the contract you signed. So you won't allow him to be healthy. You won't allow him to not need and depend on you, because maybe that is your thing. You like them broken. You need to figure that out. You need to figure that out. And you need to figure out, if you're broken yourself, what has nurturing this man back to love done to you? Where are you? Now, it looks like you have some expectations of what your blended family should look like. He has an ex-wife reality forever. He has children reality forever. Even when they are grown and they're middle-aged, or as long as he's still alive and you're still alive and they're still alive, they are a factor in your life. So again, take inventory. What is a healthy blended family? How do we achieve that? Am I taking this stereotypical stepmother type position where the ex-wife and the children are always considered as some kind of interference or inconvenience in your relationship with the man you nurtured back to love? Or you are cast into this position of the evil stepmother? You need to figure out which of those dynamics is playing out here. And the thing is, you cannot change him, you cannot change them. So the only thing you can change and you can control is your own attitude towards all of it. And you need to know and understand how you are thinking and feeling and experiencing this blended circumstance. It's putting tension between you and this man. You argue all the time. You said you argue all the time. And he has come to the decision that you don't like his kids, which is very contradictory to this fiance who nurtured him back to love. So if you're nurturing people back to love, you must be a loving and kind person. So why are you not being loving and kind to his children? It makes it look like you have ulterior motives, hidden agendas. We don't know what's going on, but there's a lot going on in this dynamic. And the first step to fixing all of it is understanding yourself within this. Yourself as somebody who was nurturing a broken person, yourself as somebody who is engaged to be married, yourself as somebody who will be taking on the role of stepmother to two children in their teens, more or less, and an ex wife who seems to be still part of his life in a prominent way. You need to figure yourself out in all of that. You haven't said much about your actual relationships with these kids. You said that their mother is influencing them to cause problems. What kinds of problems? What kinds of problems are they causing? And problems with children, whether they're yours or somebody else's, it comes with the territory. So are you sure that you're not reading things into things that are inaccurately not there because you are maybe leaning into some kind of stereotype? Maybe you liked this idea of you and him. Maybe when you came into his life at the time, he wasn't having as much contact with his children because he was broken, and then you nurtured him back to love. And did you nurture him back to love just you, or to love you and his kids and everybody else that he wants and needs in his life? Why did you nurture him back to love? What did you want out of it? And is that now what you feel is being taken away from you? Because it also sounds like you feel you invested in him and you deserve something in return. That's not really love. That is not really love. That is commerce. I do this for you, therefore you do that to me, and we both do that for me or to me. And we both make a profit. It's commerce. But love, like actual love, it's unconditional. And love is something that if somebody is loving, they're loving not just to their immediate circle, but just generally. They treat people with kindness and love, even absolute strangers, because that's what love is. It is not something you put in one container and screw on the cap so it doesn't get out to other people. So I would suggest you also examine your understanding of love and what type of love you were expecting after nurturing this man back to love. Did you do it for yourself or for him? Because if it was for him, then allow him to love his children, whether they're imperfect or not. Don't be the voice that constantly criticizes his children. It will never go well for you. Focus on how can I build a positive relationship with these children, because if they are being influenced by their mother, that it's not really their fault. So how are you building a relationship with them? Because you're marrying this man, and I presume that is for the rest of your life. So do you really want to cause some long-term estrangement between this man and his children? So you need to think. You need to think about a lot of things. And you also need to think about what you deserve as a human being. And when I use the word deserve, really honestly, it's for want of a better word, because I always say nobody really deserves love. If we understand what love is, the way love is supposed to be. And I take my definition personally from the Bible. It should be unconditional, it should be kind, keep no record of wrongs, and so forth, not proud, right? It is kind, it is patient, it is not jealous or envious. That's my all of these things. And really, when you think about it, there's nothing we can do as human beings to deserve love. but we need it. So when I say think about what you need yourself, and is this man able to give that? Is this man able to give that? Are you feeling loved yourself in this relationship? Are you feeling taken care of yourself in this relationship? Are your needs being met? Sometimes that dissatisfaction can be displaced onto something else because we feel like I've put so much into this relationship. I endured so much for this man. I'm not giving up on him now, which is good because love does not give up on people. But at the same time, is it causing you to ignore some important red flags? Is it causing you to compromise in such a way that you are developing resentment and bitterness? And because you don't want that on you and him, you are displacing it onto his children and his ex wife. But really, maybe your issue is not with them, but with him. Displacement is a what we call defense mechanism. When we don't want to face the truth, tackle the truth, when we put it on something else. No, I'm resentful and bitter because of them children. But really, what it is it's him. It's him. Has he been able to love you in a healthy way? Now that you've nurtured him back to love, is he loving you the way that you need to be loved? If he is, then you just need to talk and figure this out. Some things will be corrected in time by themselves. You don't even have to do anything. You just have to endure and know that things will change. But to be able to ride that wave or wait for things to change, you do need to be in a healthy relationship. And a healthy relationship starts with two healthy minds. Are you healthy? Is he healthy? Are you getting the love you need? Is he getting the love he needs? And then go from there. But really, what is your relationship with these children? I think that's really, really important. I imagine myself that there's no man, no woman out there who wants to be married to a person that they believe doesn't like their children. Because right there, and we've heard the stories, we've watched the news, we've seen the evidence that sometimes that dislike can deepen and worsen into something a lot more sinister, a lot more cruel, a lot more dangerous over time. You have a lot to think about, a lot of reflecting to do, a lot of inventory to take, starting with yourself. Okay, so I hope that helped Anonymous in Toronto. Now let's go back to the subject of mental health. When we say mental health, what are we actually talking about? And I want us to have this understanding, this definition in mind as we continue with the different topics, the journey of personal growth, as we talk about self judgment, self worth, self love, as we talk about relationships, nurturing relationships, boundaries, as we talk about the stigma of mental health and work based trauma and mental health in the workplace, and really any other topic. To start with, we should know and understand that mental health is a basic human right. You have the right to be mentally healthy. You have the right to be mentally healthy. That means if there is something or someone that is deliberately compromising your mental health, you should do something about it. Fight for your own rights. This is what I was saying. Some of us are so unhealthy, so unhappy, and we don't even know why, because we're just kind of going through life in this haze. Your mental health is your right. You have a right to a happy, positive mental health, right? So let's start with that. And when we talk about mental health, we're basically talking about your well being. We're not just talking about how you feel, your feelings, your thoughts. We mean generally everything. And mental health, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll keep saying it, you cannot divorce mental health from physical health. You cannot. You want to be mentally healthy, start with your physical health. Because if you're in chronic pain, chances are your mental health is not good. If you are overweight, having health problems, chances are your mental health is not good. If you are underweight, having mental health, having physical problems, your mental health is going to be impacted. Our physical health, chronic pain, all those things, they impact our mental health. So exercise is important, sleep is important, a healthy diet, healthy balanced diet is important, because all of these add to good physical health, which also adds to good mental health. Sometimes with people who are stressed, especially, I advise them work out more, run, walk, go to the gym, do more physical stuff, because out of that physical exercise they can actually start to relieve stress and other pressures in their lives. So, mental health is married to physical health. So, when you are thinking about, am I healthy mentally? You're also thinking about, am I healthy physically? Right? Mental health is also about your social life. Social life is uh, going out there, meeting people, your relationships, even in the home, who you hang out with, where you hang out. So, all those aspects that make you a person amongst other people. You're not isolated, you are not by yourself. You're out there, you have relationships, you have friends, you have relatives, you have family, you have co-workers and colleagues. That's your social life. And it doesn't just refer to just people, but it's also places where you interact and engage with people. What makes you a human being amongst other human beings, a human being in communion with other human beings, in communication, in relationship, in community with other people. So when you examine your your mental health, you also have to examine your social life. Do I have a healthy social life? And what does a healthy social life look like? Healthy relationships. You know, when you're a kid, just started going to school, maybe you're 5, 6 years old, 7 years old or so. For some kids, this week their best friend is Gary, next week it's Taiwo, then the week after it's Melinda, the week after that it's Akan, and because they're still discovering their social self at that age. When they become an adolescent, a teenager, it becomes a little more romantic. So this week they're dating so and so, next week it's this guy, and next week it's that person. And they're now discovering their sexuality, they're now discovering their romantic preferences, all of that. And so they're moving from one relationship to the other in a journey of self discovery. When they were smaller, younger, it was friendships that they were exploring. Oh, I like how that person talks to me. So you kind of stick with them for a week or two, and then you're attracted to something else. And that little child is exploring their social world. They're experimenting with different types of friends and friendships and all of that. In adolescence, it becomes about romance and relationships that way, and sexuality. In young adulthood, so you keep expanding as a human being. But at some point, it becomes unstable to keep exploring the world that way. This week you're dating so and so, next week it's somebody else, and now you're going through one romantic relationship after the other. It's not healthy. It's actually not healthy. You are having sexual relationships different all the time, also not healthy. There has to be stability at some point. You have to have matured and grown enough to know who you are, what you want, what works for you, and have close, intimate relationships with a fixed group of people, rather than moving from this person to that person and moving from this person to that person. This is where we start talking about what psychologists call attachment. And there are different types of attachment. And we'll talk about that when we talk about relationships. So when you're taking inventory of your mental health, you're starting with your physical health, you're getting into your social health, your social life as well. And then we have the spiritual, which is more about the things that we value and hold most sacred and important to us on a spiritual level. Do we believe we have a soul? Do we believe in life after this life, and all of that? And this is another place where stability is important. Self-awareness and knowing yourself is important, because again, you will find that there are people who go from one belief to another. This year they're Buddhist, next year they're something else, and the year after there's something else. Some people say, okay, I'm a Christian, but they're going from church to church to church. So there's that lack of spiritual stability. You're always in a state of spiritual turmoil and confusion that can lead to poor mental health. So you're also looking at your spiritual self. Do I know who I am? What are my values? What do I believe? What keeps me grounded as a spiritual being? How do I connect spiritually with other people, with the world around me? You need to know those things as well, because that can also impact your mental health. If you're constantly feeling lost, feeling like you're in the wrong place, often it's a spiritual chaos, a spiritual need that is not being addressed in a good and healthy way. So it's not even about you have to believe in God or whatever it is you believe. Do you know what it is? And is it a stable thing in your life? Or are you here, there, everywhere, feeling lost, feeling confused, feeling disconnected? Because this is often where people go into some kind of crisis and can actually start self-harming and start feeling that life isn't worth it, because on a spiritual level, they are experiencing chaos or crisis that they can't manage. So you need to know your values, you need to know your beliefs, and you need to be grounded in them. So that's your physical life, your social life, your spiritual life. And then your emotional life. That's the other aspect. This is where we talk about emotional regulation, which we've talked about a number of times. And emotional regulation is your ability to control your emotions instead of your emotions controlling you. It's your ability to be angry without being destructive, to be sad without being completely in despair or depressed. It's being able to know that right now what I'm feeling is this, and I'm feeling this way because of that, and being able to regulate those emotions so that they don't take over and destroy and blow up your life, basically. So you need to look at, how do I handle my emotions? How do I respond in emotional situations? How long does it take me to recover? If I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm disappointed, how do I express my emotions in a healthy way? We've talked a little bit about assertiveness versus being passive aggressive or aggressive, right? So, assertiveness is that ability to express even your emotions in a healthy, clear, firm way to somebody else. So you're not letting people walk all over you. You're not like the people pleaser that said she put so much stock in what other people think of her, that she's come to a point where she's destroying herself for the sake of other people. So her emotional life right there is not healthy. So as you're taking inventory, you're looking at your physical, your social, your spiritual, your emotional. And then the other part of it is your economic or financial life. And when we talk about economic and financial, yes, we're talking money, but so much more. It's not just about money, it's also how you handle money, how you're getting money, how you're keeping money, how you're using money. It's not just about you have enough, because like really whoever has enough. If people could have enough money, we would not have billionaires, because I mean, like, what do you need $1 billion for? But you can never have enough. So it goes beyond I need enough money to your relationship with money. And yes, we all have a certain type of relationship with money. Some healthy, some not so healthy. There's some people that love money way too much. There's people that are afraid of money. There's people that don't know how to manage or handle having money. Like your hand starts itching and you just have to spend it because you're more comfortable being broke than actually having something in the bank. When it's there in the bank, it feels like, oh, so you go out and spend it so you can come back to zero, and you're more comfortable with that. That's about your relationship with money. Economic life is also about your job, what you do for a living. Is it something that brings you fulfillment and satisfaction? Is it something that brings you the funds you need to pay your bills and all of that? Is it something you can own and feel proud of? And what is your economic life like? So your money, your occupation, how you're spending your money, how you feel about spending your money. Some people save and save and save and live such dreary lives for the sake of saving. You're worried about, if I don't save, I'll go broke. What will I do in retirement? Da, da, da. So you deny yourself even simple pleasures because you're so afraid of the future. And you're using money as some kind of reassurance that your future will be good. But while you're doing that, you're neglecting the present. So you're not even enjoying your money. So your economic, your financial life is also critical to your mental health. Are you always stressed about money? About so and so who owes me money? You can never forgive a debt, so you're always fighting and arguing with people. Maybe you're one of those people who borrows and borrows and borrows, and people are always fighting you and cursing you because you owe them money and you're not paying them back. Your economic and financial life also has a direct impact on your mental health. So when you take inventory, you're looking at that. How does money affect your relationships? I remember in 2008, when there was a recession, a global recession, a lot of um, I remember at the time I was living in Ireland, and there was something the Irish were calling the Celtic tiger, because Ireland had just gone through this period of economic growth. People were upgrading their homes, there was more money flowing around, the construction industry was booming, multiple sectors were booming, people were buying homes, going on vacations and holidays. A lot of people's lives were good, and then the 2008 recession hit. There was a spike in divorce and relationship breakdowns in Ireland when that recession hit, because a lot of relationships depended on that flow of money. Oh, we're going off to Portugal, we're going to Spain, we just bought 2 new cars, we've done this and that. And the whole relationship is built around spending money. And then there's no more money, and the cracks start to show. And you realize we've built a relationship dependent on money. And when we don't have enough of that, our relationship crumbles. We can't go to dinner every Friday anymore. We can't go on these vacations. We can't do this. We can't keep up even with the Joneses. You're constantly comparing your money situation with other people's money situations. So also take inventory of your economic and financial health. How do you handle money? How does money influence and impact your relationships? So it's your physical health, your social health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your economic or financial health. These things contribute directly to your mental health. If you're in debt, maybe you have to make some hard decisions around bankruptcy and all of that. Maybe you're a student with mounting student loans. Maybe you're one of those families. We know that a lot of people, like here in Canada, bought houses during COVID when interest rates were low and things were good, and now they can't afford it and they've become house poor. We have this term that we call house poor, where people have these big huge houses, but they're paying so much in mortgage and taxes and all for that house, it has made them poor to the extent that their relationships are being impacted. They can't go on vacations. They can't rest and relax. You're now taking on 2 jobs, working extra shifts, all of that, just to pay the mortgage. You are worried that if I don't keep this up in a month or two, in 3 months, whatever, I will lose this home. And there have been a lot of people who've lost homes because they just couldn't keep up with the payments. So your financial and economic life impact your mental health. You have to be wise about your money. You have to live within your means, and you have to know what your means are. Sometimes we know that for now I'm in this place, but if I continue on this path, in 5 years, in 10 years, I'll be better off. Do you have a plan? Are you working that plan? I've had clients say to me, well, what's the point of planning when you can't guarantee that's how it will work out? Research shows having a plan makes you a considerable um, percentage more likely to succeed. And I can't remember if it's 70 or something percent more likely to succeed than someone who doesn't have a plan. So it increases your chances of success. Plans don't guarantee it, but they increase your chances of success. So these are some of the things to think about when we talk about mental health. And as I said, we will go into these topics that you've sent to us. So over the next 6 weeks, I think we have a good number of topics to discuss. but bring more ideas, send in your questions, your comments, share some of your experiences, and let's work on our mental health together. Let's get to that place where we're physically, socially, spiritually, emotionally, economically secure and straight, so that we have good and positive mental health. We've come to the end of Mental Health Hour. Do get in touch, 437-778-3299. Call or text us, 437-778-3299. You can also email infolovebay@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your topic ideas, share your experiences. It's always nice when people share their experiences. What have you learned through these experiences? Let's work together in 2024 on our mental health. At the end of this year, let's be in a position to trace, I was in this bad place, but I've done all these things and now I'm in this good place. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you for your time. Be kind and compassionate towards each other. Good night.